My name is Eric Francis, the editor of Planet Waves and the author of Cosmic Confidential, the 2010 annual edition of Planet Waves. In 12 years of writing annual horoscopes, there hasn't quite been a year when I've looked at the charts and thought, damn, I am glad I have been doing this for a long time. But this year, for the first time, I've been working with that thought, that experience right now is really important. And let me share why a little bit. Given the care with which my words are read, I really try to do my best to get them right. But I do that knowing that there's not really a right to be got. There's always a choice in astrology. It's never really the correct interpretation. All you can do is look at the many ways to express the many things the charts say and use intuition to guide the thought process through and come up with something that's relevant and applicable. So I strive for attaining what I would call an inner guide, which is to have a compassionate unfolding of the human story. There's a lot of ways to read astrology. Not all of them are that compassionate, particularly if they block us in. And I would say if I have one goal in my writing, it's to make sure that I'm not boxing my readers into a kind of a corner where they only have one option or can't get out. Now, sometimes when the astrology is really, really exciting, there's a natural temptation to express it in a really exciting way. And one thing I've learned from experience is to understate the case when the astrology is really exciting. And one of the reasons for that is so that I'm not making promises that I can't keep. But there's a more important reason, which is that in really exciting moments, a lot of what comes up for people are their blocks. They can see the world changing or a lot going on around them, and then what we're confronted with internally are our limitations. This can be extremely frustrating when it seems like everything is so exciting, which it hasn't been for a long time, but let's pretend. And then all that someone, such as yourself or myself, might be feeling are our internal limitations, our unfinished business, the sense of work that hasn't been done, or what might be blocking us from expressing our potential, from getting involved. And so what I try to do with my horoscopes, in particular this year's annual horoscope, is to get underneath that. And rather promising an outcome, what I'm looking for are the potential blocks to the awareness of creative energy, and then use the miracle of astrology to work on that level to sort of unhitch some of the snags or to point out some of the challenges that we might be facing that might get in the way of expressing our potential. Now, there's always an interesting line to walk when the world seems to be in complete chaos, which it is on many levels, and it is for many people. And, you might say, well, we have a lot of nerve thinking that we're supposed to have a good life, that we're supposed to live well when so many people are suffering and when the world is in such rough condition, when banks are failing and people are being foreclosed and the temperature of the planet is rising and the penguins and the polar bears are struggling and people are getting poisoned by factories. And here's my answer to that. I think that the world, such as it is an entity unto itself, needs people who are in creative, open-hearted, open-minded mode so that those people can be the ones who participate in a process of change. We can't really do very much if we are beaten down, held down, struggling, completely caught up in our own personal drama. We cannot be available to one another, and we can't be available to the world. So this is not an excuse for hedonism, but I'm suggesting that we take it upon ourselves to take the most positive and optimistic view of life, to do our personal work, and then make ourselves available to participate in a process of global change. And I am pretty convinced that this process of global change is underway. I can tell partly from some knowledge of history. I can tell partly because it looks like we as a human race are definitely collectively back into a corner from which we're going to have to get out one way or the other. And finally, I can tell from the astrology. Now, although we have not been living through what I would call particularly exciting times, a lot of people have been doing a lot of work on themselves for many years. I think that for many of us, this goes back to this thing that used to be called the New Age movement. This was had a big heyday in the 70s and not so much of a big, but certainly a heyday in the 80s. And many people embarked on spiritual paths. They began taking yoga classes and went every week forever and went to therapy. And the question is, why? Okay, partly why is to heal our personal drama, heal our issues, heal family material. But the second part of why is to be available to participate. And I would call upon everyone to basically declare yourself a graduate of at least phase 1 of spiritual growth, and now embark on phase 2, which is looking for concrete opportunities to participate. One thing I would caution against is thinking that those opportunities are going to come looking like prepackaged success. We're in a time now when we have many of the elements and many of the implements of a creative process, but there's one last thing necessary, and that is a process of invention. Invention based on personal circumstances, invention based on a local situation, and invention based on the people who we have around us who, among yourselves, can set a goal that you feel is worthy. Sometimes you make up that goal one night. Sometimes the challenge presents itself to you as some event or incident politically or environmentally in your community. The thing is to be paying attention for when that seeming problem arises that's actually an opportunity to get you and the people close to you involved and get moving. Because we have not been doing all this work for nothing, we have not been learning for nothing, and we haven't been building this whole technical network for nothing. We are here, we are now, and my prediction, let's say, is that we're going to be feeling a very loud calling, particularly come late winter, early spring. So keep listening, keep your antennas up. My name is Derek Francis. This is Planet Waves Video.